We do our best work underground, not underwater. You wind up in the creek, all you get from your
Now we're going to make Holly manage it. She's to prevent something called high grading. High grading is when you steal the ore. In a silver mine, I don't think that was a very profitable adventure at all because you need to grind it up to get the silver out. But in gold mines, it was just a theft going on every second. Anybody here from California? Ever heard of the Comstock lode? Comstock lode is one of the richest gold strikes in America. They estimate 40% of it was stolen by the miners. They had hollow heels in their boots. They beat James Bond hollow heels. One old miner actually had a glass eye. He'd pop out that glass eye when he found a nugget. Put that glass eye in. They would wash their hair in the mud, had it in their beards. And what they're doing is they're trapping fine grains of gold. When they go home, they wash their hair out, the gold pan, and they would augment their income. One of the ways of preventing that, how do you think you got paid if you worked in a silver mine? No. It's a dynamite warmer. Yeah.
Too hot, not so good?
Yeah, you're right. Too hot, not so good. Albert Nobel, everybody heard of the Nobel Prize? This is what he made his millions and billions on, his high explosives. He had the patent on dynamite in 1867, and dynamite is nitroglycerin soaked up in sawdust or something called Fuller's earth or clay. The idea is he's stabilizing the nitroglycerin. A liquid form of nitroglycerin is very difficult to deal with. The problem with nitroglycerin in any form at about 50 degrees, it will not explode. It sort of freezes and not like water, you know, it's hard, it just loses its chemical punch. So you had to warm it up to make it explode. So the genius behind this was you would put dynamite in this and you'd set it over a small fire, hot coals. I also heard you pour hot water over it. No one has been able to explain to me how you knew you got it warm enough before it exploded. I've heard stories about the fact that it would change color. And I thought, this is the Coors beer can. You know, the Coors beer can turns blue, so when it turns red, it's ready to go. Get in and out of the mine quickly. They didn't have to worry about banging their heads and anything. So in this little container, this dynamite box, they would bring in dynamite and or black powder. The blaster would put this dynamite in the holes that the miners are drilling. Primary reason the miners are drilling holes here is that you need dynamite to break it loose. You can't use pick and shovel on this. You need the blaster. So Holly here, as the powder monkey, would bring in black powder or dynamite, and then the blaster would put it in the holes, and then guess who would give the matches to? To light the fuses. The idea being is that the powder monkey could run out of the mine a lot quicker than he could. So the powder monkey would light it. After the blast, they'd wait about an hour or two and clean all the rock out in the ore. Now, what do you think she would bring out in this? Holly, what do you think you'd bring out of this? No idea. This is the original porta potty.
Oh, nice.
This is what they would bring the solid waste out in. They would also smuggle ore out in this. And about this time, this is where I end this discussion. And I think they passed what they call the Sherman Silver Act, which said the government would buy 4.5 million ounces of silver every month at $1.25 an ounce, guaranteed price. In 1893, they stopped that. They repealed the Sherman Silver Act. The price of silver went from $1.25 to 60 cents. Silver mining in America, basically, the major miners or exporters of silver are Mexico and South America. How many from Colorado? You know where Crete is at? It's southwest of here. There is an effort down there now to start mining silver again and to actually try and produce silver on a profit basis. And the individual was telling me this, the way he made it sound like it had a couple of hundred people involved. It's got 8. Big endeavor. silver lining going against Creed. Like we talked about dynamite. When Nobel made it very stable, you could no longer set it off simply with black powder like nitroglycerin was. You needed a detonator. That's what was stored in this box. That's the primary purpose of this box. The secondary purpose is to remind us tour guides that there's a hole in the floor and don't put our foot to it. We can't afford to replace the wood. This is the short part of the line. Look at this part of the line like you do the human body. The ceiling is called the back. The sides are called the ribs. And the floor, it's called the floor. They ran out of metal for terms. I can't explain. The way they achieved this 110 feet is all you are just above the water table. So let's see if I can get Holly here to move up to the third line.
I did.
They're hand rolling all these. No, they're hand rolling and twisting the bit as they do that. One, in this line, and we talked about this a little bit later too, but to the best of our knowledge, how many of you know what a Tommy knocker is? So there's no Tommy knockers, but we refer to Tommy knockers when we get back to the lunchroom. And if I can get them back, have you maybe form 2 rows?
Easier to get the ore out.
That's right. Your cards were quarter ton, your rails you're on, the one here, it ain't worth the diddly, so I'm gonna go buy my own for next year. Yeah. What happens is the batteries wear out, nobody replaces them, and then they keep on replaced. We have another drift here. We have another plug here. This is an excellent demonstration of how much of the drift. This was done on the first day of work, second day. And I'm pretty sure that's the third or fourth day of it. You can see, you know, these holes are electrical, they use all the rest of the work that they blast, they sink in. Around here, you'll see some holes on the bottom, and those are called lifters. And this whole thing works right. They would all go off in a sequence, and the lifters would pull all that 580 feet and pull over 2 years. And if I can have you move up to that light right there, Holly. Holly's our leader. She's gonna fight the dragon here in a minute. But here's our example of how far they would progress. This mine, they bragged how well this mine is ventilated, and we're doing. You can feel it. We check this mine every morning, and we average 20.9. There are no bad gases in this one. I know everybody will pick up on this. How many of you have ever been held up on a superhighway? Nope. Well, today, you held up the westbound lane of I-70. Because that's the westbound lane of I-70. Gentlemen, asked Paul how deep we are. Now, deep is relative. When you go horizontal is deep, and when you go vertical is deep. You're 250 feet under I-70. Other bragging rights, you have survived being run over by numerous 18-wheelers and a whole bunch of cars. Because by the time you get to the lunchroom, you're gonna be on the other side of I-70. We have a little exhibit here, and if I get you to form 2 rows real quickly, and the exhibit gave us a name for this. We thought it was a lot more intriguing than say a black goo. We call it dragon's flag. Marsh and the Welsh believe that dragons guarded wealth. And what their belief would be is that there's a dragon factor quietly waiting, indicating some form of wealth. We think it's an indication of a silver vein. See ladies, get out your nitroglycerin, your dynamite. We'll poke a hole in here and see if we can get you silver set by lunchtime.
So with a drift like this, they drill a hole, put the dynamite in?
They would probably drill a pattern around this.
How much cleanup after they do start something like that in that direction? I mean, would they have big collapses from time to time?
They would probably generate some fairly big collapses, but as you see, you don't see big collapses here because this stuff holds itself together.
Well,
You don't, they did do a lot of collapse work when they blasted for I-70. I mean, parts of this complex higher up were completely, eradicated because of that work. He had it hanging from his helmet, and I'm not too sure if he was trying to, be the first Michael Jackson, or he was into erotica and liked hot wax on his back. I'm not too sure what he was into, but I don't think it was a practical picture. I think he was posing for it. All the miners had their Bics, all right? Now we will hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And then they would stick it in there. And where's Holly at? This whole mining complex generated $500,000. 200,000 of it came right from here. This was one of the big bonus babies. This is what they were looking for. That outcropping that they found on the face of Republican Mountain was one of the. This was the form of it right here. This is the other end of the Everett. And did I do this outside? I don't remember about describing the relationship with the Everett and this mine.
the 50-foot?
Yeah, the 50-foot thing. Well, where you're sitting in that lunchroom is where that other drift is at. And so I know when they connect the two, they want to do that connection only for the guides or in case of emergencies. But turning it into a commercial venture is just way too dangerous to have people drop 40 feet and 50. I'm sorry, I can see casualties now. Nobody died in this mine in the last 100 years. I can see somebody getting themselves killed trying to do that stunt. This hoist was built in place, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where it was made at. The nameplate says Union Manufacturing, Georgetown, Colorado. This worked on steam, believe it or not, and we're not exactly sure how it worked on steam. The previous tour asked me, and I went off on a tangent on that. We think it's some kind of strange Hokum engine. But this rope would be through this pulley. You see the bolts on that pulley? We're pretty sure it would have been attached up there, and that rope would have gone through that pulley into this barrel. And you see those two protrusions or prongs? That's a slide. So that barrel slid up and down that ladder and shake that barrel loose. Now, if that miner's at the bottom of that shaft and that barrel breaks loose, what do you think the miner got?
In the way.
They're coming.